AAU teams, college teams. I'll never forget, one day we couldn't find a gym. These are very high-end basketball teams. We wanted to take the girls, well, we're going to go outside and play. Outside and play? There are bugs out there. I said, when we came along, there were really AAU was boxing, track. We played basketball on the playgrounds, and you kind of earned your stripes playing on the playgrounds. And Barry, I remember, you had a dean, who knows Sam Paschal here? Sam ran Luzon Playground, home of Adrian Dantley. I don't know if any of you are basketball fans, but Adrian Dantley led the NBA in rebounding, points scored for several years. An NBA legend. He played at Luzon. In order to play at Luzon, he had to get Sam's blessing, because Sam ran the playground, and the DC playgrounds were everything. So basketball was a really big thing. So I played basketball. Girls like basketball. But I also played golf. My dad introduced me to golf years and years ago as a caddy. And there was only one course we could play on here, which was Langston back in the 60s and early 70s. And some kind of way I played in some tournaments. I was pretty good back then as a high schooler. I ended up going to Princeton. I don't know whether I was recruited or not, but I just remember the golf coach continuing to come and ask me to play on the golf team. I didn't know kind of what it meant back then, because golf wasn't cool. This was before Tiger Woods. There were no black people playing golf. I mean, it was just no black people playing golf. I wanted to play basketball, so I played on the basketball team. The problem was I wasn't that good. I was what I would call an average college basketball player, and we had a really great player on the team. His name was Brian Taylor. Brian went on to play point guard. He left Princeton, played point guard for Julius Erving, did very well with the Nets, and then I thought I would get a chance to play, and along comes Armand Hill, who's one of the coaches for, where's Armand coaching now? Clippers now. He went to Doc Rivers, played. So I never really got to play, so I said, and Princeton was too hard, so I decided I'm just going to play golf, because I'm good at golf. I'm not that good in basketball. I'm good, but not that good. But I'm really good in golf. So nobody's beaten me in golf. So I played golf, and what an interesting choice it was, because when I left Princeton, I came to Howard University Law School, and I enjoyed it so much. I did very, very well. I was editor-in-chief of the Law Journal. Any of you interested in law school or going on to professional school? You're here in business schools, and no law students here. I see one of my students. He's heard a couple of you have heard this story, but when you go to law school, it's not about clubs or fraternities. It's really very simple. It's who are the top 5 students in the class and who's on law review, and those are the people that get the best grades. And I was fortunate enough to do that. So I ended up clerking for a judge here in the Federal District Court, Chief Judge William Bryant. And Judge Bryant was just an amazing man. I had his best 2 years of my life. I didn't make any money, but I had a great, great, great time. I ended up, Judge Bryant was interested in golf here again, and he would always talk to me in timeouts about golf. He would have all these different sayings, gosh, Mike, that lawyer's like a lost ball in high leagues. Rick, what's going on? And he would call timeout, and I used to think I'd done something wrong. And he'd call me back and he said, Rick, you cannot take notes and listen. You just have to listen and you'll remember. And I used to have a habit of taking notes. I said, Judge, I can't remember the testimony like you can. I have to write notes down. He was an amazing experience. Again, didn't make much money, but trying to inch my way up through life, I seized an opportunity when I had it, and I clerked, and wow, did wonderful things happen from that. A whole bunch of law firms wanted me to work with them. The New York firms came calling, and they bring you up, and they throw a lot of money at you. Oh, you can work here, you can work there. Oh, we work hard, and we'll give you a $10,000 clothing allowance. We give you a whole range of things to do, and you work hard, and here are our partners, they work hard. I listened to that sales pitch, but privately, what they didn't understand about Rick Hyde is, I don't really like to work. I mean, I work, but I don't like to work. I work for before it ends. When I want to do something I like, I go to the golf course or basketball games, but it's like these New Yorkers are too hung up with work and glorifying how much they work. Come on, not me. So then the California firms came. It flew me out to California. I remember Gibson, Dunning Project was the firm I eventually went to. Flew me out. They put me up in the Beverly Hills marquee. I had a wonderful one. I had a whole suite. I remember calling my friends, come over, come over, come over. And I realized what a weak man I was at that point because I had gone to rent a little car. I was in Los Angeles. I figured my interview was 2 days, but I would go around and look at some of LA and see my friends. So I didn't know the thing to do was to call downstairs and have them bring your car up. So I went down like I would do at home to get my car, and I think I had like a Ford Escort, which is what I could afford. And as I'm waiting for them to bring my car up, here comes a Maserati. Here comes a Porsche. Here's a Bentley coming up. All these incredible cars, and I like cars. This is incredible. This is really incredible. And then so they bought up this Ford Escort. And I just tried to ignore it. That's my car. It was so embarrassing to me because all these really cool cars were out there. And I realized, you know what, I will fall prey to what really is a big problem in Los Angeles. And what I learned not to like about Los Angeles, and that is everything is kind of phony in Los Angeles. Nothing is what it appears to be. You go to a restaurant. The waitress is not really a waitress. She's really an actress. You get in the cab. The cab driver is not really a cab driver. He's a movie producer. Somebody comes up in a Rolls Royce. They didn't have as much money as I had. Somebody has an incredible estate. They've got some ridiculous payment where they put $5,000 down, but there's a balloon payment due, and you guys are business students, so you know all this. Year 5, you have to pay $25 million, which you can't possibly pay. So nothing is really what it appeared to be, and I really wasn't a Los Angeles guy, but I did kind of like the firm because their approach was, we see an associate working too hard. We try to keep their lives balanced. We like you to go to Tahoe, we like you to sail, we like you to go down to Newport Beach. All that sort of appealed to me, so I ended up joining Gibson, Dunning Project. What an interesting. I made a lot of money, there's no question about it. But a couple of things. I found I was always on the wrong side of the issue. I don't know if any of you know what that means, but the people that can pay the prices for that type of a law firm are usually the businesses. And I'll never forget one case which kind of earmarked my career at Gibson Dunn. Well, there are a couple things that earmarked my career. It was against a company called Asarco, which was a lead smelt refinery up in Pennsylvania. And they were fighting the EPA, who wanted them to stop disseminating all these toxic things into the community because kids were born with deformities and this, that, and the other. It was my job to win that case. And I won the case for the company. But my God, I went home and said, well, I really feel good about this myself. I mean, what have I done? Allow the company to contaminate the whole community. How many babies are now going to be born deformed? And the other thing that defined it is that Gibson Dunn was really a firm that back then actually engineered Ronald Reagan's victory. One of the partners in the firm ended up being Ronald Reagan's Attorney General. And I'll never forget the guys coming to me, very conservative. As Ken Starr was a partner who really liked me a lot. You guys probably don't remember Ken Starr, but he's the one that chased Bill Clinton around for many, many years. He's now a dean at Pepperdine. He's a really good friend. He wanted to come and teach at Howard. I'm like, Ken, that's not going to happen. I'm not really doing that. But they came, if you stay here, Rick, you could be the next Clarence Thomas who can engineer that sort of thing. Guys, for one thing, money doesn't mean that much to me for some reason, but that was not a career path. I just couldn't do that. I'm not Republican. I don't admire their positions. I think many of them are absolutely despicable, extremely selfish people. And it's just not the way I was raised. I was raised more in an egalitarian mode. Howard University Law School. I went to Howard because it made some sense to go to for me. This was championship of legal rights. But so I went to Gibson, Dunning Project. One good thing that happened, I had a very close friend of mine. Harry, you may know Teresa Crawford. Teresa was at American University, was head of ALSA, which is Black American Law Student Association, national organization. I was editor-in-chief of the Law Review, so I was more the substantive person, she's the political person, she still to this day is. And when she got out of American University, she started working for Jesse Jackson. And then she was called in from Jesse, bought out really, by Stevie Wonder, who Steve decided that Martin Luther King's birthday should be a national holiday. And everyone thought that was just a joke back then. Martin Luther King's birthday, national holiday, what are you talking about? But he very tenaciously decided to forge the first March on Washington back in 1980. And Teresa was hired to run it, and she did an incredible job. You guys remember from your civics classes in high school how a bill's got to go through Congress, it's got to be signed off by the president, it was in Ronald Reagan. In order for Martin Luther King, all of Congress thought it was a joke. Ronald Reagan, the Reagan administration supported apartheid back then. Nelson Mandela was still in jail. That's again when I listened to all of my Republican friends. Privately, I remember you admired the same Ronald Reagan, who he first was an actor. The firm just bought him up. He was one of William Friend Smith's clients. And then they engineered him to be president of the United States. Can he deliver a line? Absolutely. But his administration supported apartheid back then, strongly. The United States government strongly supported apartheid. Steve decided Martin Luther King's birthday should be a national holiday. Funded the first march on Washington out of pocket. I'll never forget that January 15th, Barry, you may remember the plane collided into the 14th Street Bridge.
Yes.
There was a subway collision, a huge, massive snowstorm. Teresa, who's little, Teresa's very short, but she's very demonstrative. She's very strong like her, despite her diminutive size. And the only parameters that she puts on her language when she gets mad is that she will not use the Lord's name in vain, but she will call you anything else. And the person who was helping her organize the march had not secured a permit. So she was in tears, ranting, raving. I've got 200,000 people coming from all around the country. I can't get a permit to put the sound stage up. Blah, 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 blah. So she's going on and on and on. I said, you got to help me. So I ended up finding out that no one had gotten a bond. Those of you guys are business students, so you know what bonding is in concerts. And if something goes wrong, somebody gets hurt, somebody gets killed, it's like an insurance situation, somebody has to pay. Nobody had done that for this, even for a concert. So the Architect of Capital was an issuing a bond. I was able to get our entertainment practice at Gibson Dunn, Latham Watkins, O'Melveny and Myers, the three top Los Angeles firms. So they cornered the market on all of the top entertainers. And the Ziffren brothers ran our entertainment division. Of course, their clients were not small clients. Their clients were Frank Sinatra, Barbra Streisand, that level of clientele. So they were able quickly to contact Steve's touring person and his bond company. And in those days, people find this hilarious, we would telex things. You guys don't even know what a telex is these days. A telex is almost a device like you would tap things through, but it would print it out and would come through the phones. And I was able to get it printed out and the bond taken down to the Architect of Capital, the permit issued. And of course, Steve thought I was a hero. At that time, I was just a federal court litigator. No interest in entertainment practice. I thought entertainment lawyers, and they weren't really viewed very highly in the bar as lawyers go. I mean, the top, smartest and the top lawyers gravitated to antitrust, gravitated to corporate law, were litigators. Entertainment bar was, if you can't do anything else, go work with these little entertainers. That's kind of the way they viewed entertainment. It wasn't really attractive to me. I wasn't doing it. But Steve and I became friends. Every year there was an issue. And for the first 3 marches on Washington, he generated an incredible amount of interest with the public. Changed the whole climate in Congress. And momentum started to swell, where even his wife, Coretta, and other people and other politicians now started to jump on board and kind of take over the march. And then Steve wrote a song, and this is where I learned the power of the song. The song was called Happy Birthday to You. And when he wrote that song, and people around the nation and around the world started singing Happy Birthday to You. Happy birthday to you. Happy happy birthday, happy birthday. I watched a transformation in this country. And I remember the bill sailing through all of a sudden. The marches now, instead of being 100,000 people, were 500,000 and 600,000 people. Activists, campaigners against poverty, all sorts of people started coming on board. And the legislation raced through. And guess who signed the bill into law? Ronald Reagan. I'll never forget what he said. You know what he said publicly when he had the bill in front of him to sign? He said, I'm going to sign this to end all the hubbub. To end all the hubbub. The great Ronald Reagan. I started listening to folks, Ronald Reagan. You know, I restrained myself. I know the man. I was in his firm. I know where he came from. He's an actor. Okay? You know. But he was still president of the United States, so I give him deference for that. But interestingly enough, that song, Happy Birthday to You, resonated all the way to South Africa. Barry has visited South Africa, so he knows what I'm talking about. The South Africans began singing Happy Birthday to You along with this legislation. And guess what happens? Nelson Mandela is released from prison. Apartheid falls. And I'm not saying it was all due to Stevie Wonder. But what I am saying is that it's just funny how things work out. But it all kind of fell into place all at about the same time. And a lot of it, I say, is due to the power of a song. Steve and I became very good friends for many years. And as his problems developed, as every person of such magnitude does. First of all, Steve is like a national treasure. He's beyond an ordinary musician. He's a national treasure. He needed a personal lawyer. I was very fortunate I became his personal lawyer. Now, where does Gibson Dunn fit in? Gibson Dunn sees Stevie Wonder as, oh, this is great. Rick, you got a client. The way they see Stevie Wonder, they visualize him as a $100,000 to $200,000 a month client. When you become a partner in a law firm, things change. You join a law firm as an associate, which means you work for the law firm. They get paid stupid money, you know. I mean, I was making so much money. I had a Porsche and I had an airplane. I had my own airplane. It's ridiculous. I really did have a lot of money. But I wasn't a partner. But when you, after about year 3 or 4, there's some push to become a partner. You know what a partner is? Usually the law firms are structured. You guys know business systems, right? Some there's corporations, there's partnerships. Many law firms back then were simply partnerships. And when you become a partner, now you get a partnership share of the total income of the firm. So now, those of you that are trying to make partners, if you have a client, push is who can generate enough money to justify them getting paid. Partnerships, nowadays, partners in major firms are making between $5 and $10 million a year. Back when I was there, it's probably $1.5 million to $5 to 10, depending upon the clients that you have. There's a lot of pressure because I'm looking around trying to figure out, let's see, $1 million and $1.2 million, that's about $100,000 a month I got to bill out. Who are my friends that can pay me $100,000 a month? And of course, Stevie Wonder is a person that the firm genuinely was interested in acquiring. Why? Because they wanted his money. I'm his friend. I knew the economics. I didn't want that. I left Gibson Dunn for my own firm. What a very interesting move that was, and what an interesting time. I ended up having a bunch of film, along with Stevie Wonder. The kind of the notion was, Rick is Stevie Wonder's attorney. If I get Rick from my attorney, I can kind of be like Stevie Wonder. It's kind of the level of thought in the music business, which it's not a lot of thought in the music business going on, but that's wrong. But I did end up with some very interesting clients. I ended up with Chris Blackwell, who at that time was most famous for Island Records, for launching reggae music. Chris was one of the wealthiest men I've ever known, a British Jamaican guy, but he launched a film division. And he had Kiss the Spider Woman and Mona Lisa that won awards venture to black things. And he had this filmmaker that he was very interested in that had just graduated from NYU's film school called Spike Lee. Spike had written a senior thesis. When you come out of NYU, you do a thesis. And it's a film. And his film was a film called She's Gotta Have It. I don't know if you guys remember. This is very historical, though, but Spike did a film called She's Gotta Have It. Chris wanted She's Gotta Have It, and he wanted to launch the film. So we signed Spike, and he and I became friends. She's Gotta Have It, but Nola Darling had to be cleaned up. But the real emphasis was that prior in film history, prior to that film, prior to Spike Lee, in order for any person of color of any note really to be in the media on film, it was black sexploitation films, exploitation films. You had to have a Shaft, some super character, Superfly. Those were the films where black people were getting to. Spike's film, She's Gotta Have It, was about Nola Darling, a black girl who was simply promiscuous. Ordinary black girl. And that was pretty much his films. There were ordinary black people in black situations, ordinary people in ordinary situations in urban settings. And what his films demonstrated, and Chris was on the cutting edge of doing that, is that, you know what, America doesn't have to see something ridiculous, a black person in some ridiculous situation. They will buy ordinary stories about black people, and wow, what did that open up? John Singleton, Denzel Washington. I remember playing with Denzel basketball backstage, you know, when he was just coming along, but so many people came through Spike. Other cinematographers, casting directors, other directors, and he opened up such an opportunity, and I happened to just be at the right place at the right time, so I was representing and working with a lot of these people. And then a very interesting thing happens. There's a woman by the name of Laretha Jones. Any of you interested in film, the film business? Anyway, I'll tell you something. Laretha Jones. Laretha was representing Spike Lee. You know, you have to have, when you do these deals, you've got to make sure the other side is represented by counsel, because if you don't, usually when the project blows up and it's highly successful, there are a whole bunch of people around trying to cherry pick your clients and your deals. And one way you get at, you know, as a lawyer, if I find out that somebody was not represented by counsel, I can usually blow that contract up. So I want to make sure somebody. So Laretha represents Spike, I'm representing Chris Blackwell. And we do all these films. Laretha also was doing Robert Townsend at that point. She was a very interesting film, a very interesting black woman who we decide, okay, I remember we were at the Sunset Marquee in Los Angeles doing something, some film project. We do all these films, why don't we make our own film? Yeah, why don't we make our own? So Rick and Laretha decided to make their own film. What a disaster. So we lined it up. I got the financing together with some friends overseas. We get Laretha's friends. She had many. She was very good at production. We had Robin Wright. We had Jason Patrick, David Duchovny. We had great cinematography. It was a great film. The problem was it was just very boring. And we realized how powerful a director was. Well, that film didn't work out. Laretha went on to do all of Robert Townsend's stuff, Meteor Man. She did a lot of films. And she went on to head, she left law altogether, and she went on to be principal, what was her title? She was head of films for BET, reporting only to Debbie Lee. Now, I don't know if any of you guys know who Debbie Lee is. Debbie Lee is CEO, chairman, president, CEO of BET. Overall, film, music, radio station ownership. She was Bob Johnson's, one of Bob's attorneys. Kind of like me with Ty Brown and Debbie, who was an associate at Steptoe and Johnson. You know who Debbie worked for was Tommy Motley. They're very good friends. They were all good friends at Steptoe. So Debbie ends up as Bob Johnson's attorney. Bob Johnson cashes out. You guys all know who Bob Johnson is, I suspect. BET Bob, well, zillionaire. And he and his wife ended up divorcing. His wife is a major developer of luxury properties around the world with her share of the billions. And Bob is doing a variety of different things with his share of the billions. Debbie is now running BET, who's in a partnership with a major Viacom. So, very interesting story. We make films, we're doing stuff. It's kind of been my film experience with, and to summarize, I represented several NBA players. I represented several NFL players. Most notably was very sick Jonathan Ogden, who's my really close friend. I'm still trustee of this foundation. One of the things I've learned, I try to do with all my clients is, you can make money. I mean, money's great. There's nothing wrong with making money. As I taught in my classes, those of you who take my class, and tell all your mama didn't send you all here and pay all this tuition for you to come out and be poor. I don't care what you hear in the songs that you like to listen to. There's relatively little glamour in being poor. And those of you that are trying to effect change and do things, you can do it a lot more effectively if you have money than you can broke. So there's nothing wrong with money. But I was just never really motivated that much by it, which is probably one of the things that was a problem for me. But I try to get my guys, no matter what their stature is, and we've worked out major multi-million dollar deals. I said, I don't care. At the end of the day, you got to evaluate yourself, and as a person, God's given you a lot of gifts. What have you done with it? Who have you helped? So I try to make everybody think about helping someone. And there comes the charitable side, the charitable foundation, which is a very good vehicle. From a business standpoint, I'll relate it to the story. From a business standpoint, it's a very good thing. A charitable donation is a big one if you can affect it the right way, because it can tag a lot of bases, particularly when you have a celebrity client. Oftentimes, the clients think that their mother and their father is the best, that's just the way to go. I have a basketball client. I don't know if I ever even told Barry this story. Who I will name it. Megastar. But he had his mother on watching all of his stuff, on his checkbook, so it comes to me. Rick, this is ridiculous. This is out of front. My mother bought her friends, like 3 of her friends, Mercedes, and my mother's got to stop. What can I do? And he's livid at his mother. His mother, the baby, this guy was the baby, so his mother was doing whatever. But she's gotten all happy now. She's got power. She's got access to the checkbook. This is what was very easy to do. Just like take her name off your checking accounts and your bank accounts. Yeah, that's what I want to do. Yes, all right, well, we can make that happen. So we made it happen. And I had an associate. This guy was down in Atlanta. I sent him down. It was a club that was being opened by this particular client. I had to get some documents executed. So he goes into the house, and the client's mother's in there in the kitchen. She says, well, Mrs. So-and-so. Very amicable. We have a nice relationship. She doesn't even blink. She's chopping something. She turns and chases the guy out the house, down the cul-de-sac. So he goes somewhere and calls me. So I had an idea what happened. So I called and I said, look, you did tell your mother that you wanted to take her name off of your account. You did have a conversation. No, man, no, let me tell you what happened. Apparently, he didn't say anything to his mother. So he's at home with one of his flavors of the week at about midnight or 1 o'clock. And the mother comes in the house. She apparently had gone somewhere to do something, thinking she credits card or check. And of course, she couldn't do it. And it resulted in a very embarrassing situation, which inflamed her. Inflamed her enough to get in her car and drive straight to his house, go in the house, and he's in there. And of course, when confronted, what does he say? I don't know anything, Rick did it. I called him and said, you told her what? I did it. Yeah, I mean, what am I supposed to do, man? I said, blah, blah. I said, okay, you know what? Okay. This is a situation that often happens with parents, family members, because there's a concept. You can go to any jail in America and see anyone that's armed robbery, burglary, thieves,
concept of entitlement in one form or another. Oh, you know, they charge too much anyway, so I could take that. A parent, I raised this kid. I could take that. This mother, I bought you with the famous mother line. I bought you into this world and I'll take you out. I think with her terms when he was caught in his room, which probably going to say Rick did. But the long and short of it is, it's a problem with celebrities because they have families, and the families have expectations. All of them think, down to cousins, I remember when so-and-so and I drove him to an AAU game and bought them all, so they all think they're entitled to some of this money. I had another player whose grandmother called me up. He had just re-upped his contract. We did a really nice deal for him in the National Football League. He just re-upped his contract, had a really nice signing bonus. You guys know how the business of sports works, right? NFL, no guaranteed money, tell them the deal, right? NFL, no guaranteed money. What's guaranteed? The only thing guaranteed is your signing bonuses. What are salaries? Non-guaranteed, which means you can be cut and you're not obligated to pay me the rest. In the other sport genres, basketball, all of it's guaranteed. Salaries, signing bonuses, across the board. In baseball, all of it's guaranteed. Not so in football. So what you have to kind of do is to watch family members and try to figure a way. This is going to be a problem. How can I adjust it? And in this particular case, the grandmother, who was a principal, called me to tell me, I need you to go talk to my grandson. I went to her house, sat down in the parlor. You guys have grandparents, you know, the parlor. Sit in the parlor. And she smoked cigarettes. She used to be a principal in the junior high school. Smoked cigarettes, drank coffee, very proper. My grandson is, understand something. I need you to explain to him. What is that? Well, this money that he's making, he seems to think it's his money. This is our money. And she's telling me this straight. And I want to, I hear you. I'm sure he doesn't understand that concept. And I will make sure that I go and explain it to him thoroughly. Well, you do that. I said, I will do it. I'll take care of it. I'm sure he doesn't understand that that's not his money. It's our money, but I'll tell him about it. Then I went and told him, and he hit the ceiling. What is she talking about? Our money. But the point is, so then you have all these family members that want it. What can you do to solve it? It's a problem. What can you do to solve it? Because you got family members, and they did take you to the AAU games, and they all think they're entitled to your money. Voila, the charitable foundation. We set up a charitable foundation where the player is doing good things in the community. Pick something. A lot of kids. Anything. Steve is obviously visually handicapped, but also Steve likes to have, every Christmas he wants every kid to have a toy. So we have a huge concert in LA where all his friends come and sing at the Nokia Center, very nice Nokia Center, right by the Staples Center. And every kid has a toy. That's just his thing. What is your thing? And I make everyone delve deep into themselves so they can feel good about being in existence, but also a charitable organization starts as an organization. And as those of you who've taken, you guys are business students, you know how corporations are founded in nonprofits. You file, you have a corporation. Well, you need officers. You need people to run it. And there's nothing wrong with paying those people. So what's wrong with making a parent or a grandparent president or vice president or secretary to run? Gives them something to do, and I can channel some money to them. And the money that my client puts in is tax deductible, so it works for everyone. It's a situation that works. You can't be greedy. Michael Jordan had one where he's given his mother $2 million a year. And the IRS came in and said, let's see. The woman's qualifications are she's a school teacher. What school teacher makes $2 million a year? And the problem with the IRS agents, when you have to deal with them, they don't really have any sense of humor. And whatever sense of humor they have, it tends not to be my sense of humor. I mean, the accountants and the tax people have their own sense of humor. Their jokes, you listen to them, oh, yeah, I don't get the humor. They do, I don't. They don't get my humor, I don't get theirs. So it's a challenging meeting. And of course, they voided Michael's nonprofit corporation because he was funneling. They viewed it as an artificial vehicle just to give his mother money that was not justified by the market. And therefore, the chair of the corporation was really a fraud. So you have to be very careful when you structure the things. But let's see, I've got a couple film projects going on right now, a couple clients going on right now, a couple lawsuits going on right now. Sometimes I'm managing clients as the lawyer, as I am with Jonathan Ogden and his foundation. Steve will never be managed by anybody because he's Taurus the Bull and he's Stevie Wonder. So I kind of like, when he wants something done, I do it. And he's currently writing a song for Lee Daniels and Empire, and trying to work that out, which is always quite a nightmare because Lee has a different vision of Empire. He wanted to come up with a show. He has a group of writers, and he told me, he said, Rick, you know, I don't want any music I like because that means it's old. So he went to his sons, and his sons like, yeah, we get Timberland would come in. Timberland's a producer. Timberland, who ironically is represented by one of my former partners, Luis West, who's almost 70, but is a brilliant intellectual property attorney in terms of publishing, and you guys know how publishing shares, and you know about copyright. You write a song, the songwriters make certain money, the Copyright Act divides part of it to the songwriter's share, part of it to the publisher's share. Publishing deals can be made. That's Luis's thing, but she's represented. Missy Elliott is just kind of a cool thing because I was sitting here laughing at Lee, and you know, I mean, Luis is older than me. She's taught me a lot of publishing stuff. But it's very interesting. She's a prolific black woman attorney in New York. Does some very interesting things. But he wanted it driven. So the music, the songwriters write, I mean, the film guys write the show. And then Timberland is supposed to fashion the music to the show with his group of writers. And that's kind of how that show is driven. So along comes this view where they want Stevie Wonder's involvement in some kind of way. And my laugh is, be careful what you ask for. You know, because Steve is Steve. I mean, he's reduced people to tears because Steve writes music. Challenges have been many times contractually. The songs are due in at a certain time so that albums can be released, so that all you wonderful business people can make money out of it. Well, artists and business guys don't get along. They don't even want to talk to you. Steve will turn a song in when it's done, and he's constantly being fined. Part of my job is to get in and get with the record company. I understand your frustration, sir. I understand your frustration, sir. I understand. Well, the fines are now $100,000. I say, I understand your frustration, sir. But what happens over the years? Fines go up into millions. Steve does it when he's finished. I have little conversations with him. I'm like, dude, you know, Steve, I mean, there's only, he's into perfection. He wants it a certain way. It's like there's only 3 people in the world that can hear what you're hearing. Only 3 people. The rest of people, like, we just turn the thing in. I mean, make my life a little easy. Of course, he's Taurus the Bull. He's not, he does what he wants to do, when he wants to do it, how he wants to do it. So, and usually that product is an incredible product. So, perhaps I've talked enough. You get a gist of what I do? What do you want to know about the entertainment business? The music business. Why is the music business the way it is? What do you got? You guys are business people, right? Why is the music business in such disarray now, while the sports business is in such relative fiscal prosperity? Why do you think that is? Yes. What's your name?
Elise.
What's your name?
Elise.
Elise, yes.
Probably because of technology and like the Google downloading and how the music industry is not making as much money as it potentially could.
Why isn't the music industry making so much money? Yes.
The culture around music has changed.
How so?
We see music as it's coming back to the social thing, I guess, where music is seen as a free thing, and you pay for PlayStation.
A free thing, yes. Yeah. Keep going.
And you see, you're paying more for PlayStation than for music itself. Yes. That's why touring is becoming this high, right?
Okay. Yes. You want to say something?
No, I would just say that.
You know the answer.
No,
Yes, you do.
no,
He's in my class, of course. I know.
just because in sports, and you go to sports events to see a lot, If not, you have to watch it on television. Just the deals that a lot of the teams have with certain, like NFL has with certain.
Not bad, not bad. How are we doing for time, Barry?
Oh, we got plenty of
All right,
time.
all right.
Plenty of time.
I'm going to preempt a little of this, okay? And I'm going to steer you guys. Tell me something about labor unions. You're business students. What's a labor union? What's labor law? How do contracts get done? Okay. Let me help you. I'll help you. Okay. National Football League. Okay? What? A little louder.
The National Football League.
The National Football League Players Association. What in the heck is that? Somebody tell me what the National Football League Players Association. Go for it.
NFL players and NFL don't come to an agreement, so the National Players Association is kind of like the representative of all players. So it comes to an agreement. That's why you get things like the lockout.
Okay. Wait a second. You are my student, former student. You didn't just say that. Who comes to an agreement? What is a collective bargaining agreement? Let's start with that. Let me help you out. What is a collective bargaining agreement between the owners of the National Football League and the players that play in the league? What is that? Yes.
When they come to a middle ground,
Who comes to a middle ground?
the players and the owners kind of find a balance of what each is asking for.
And who represents the players?
The Players Association.
Yes. Why?
Well, is it because there's so many players that in order for them all to come together?
No, it's labor law. You guys have got to learn labor law. You got to learn. You're going to be in business. You got to learn to deal with the union. I can't remember the name of the movie. I can see the girl, coal miner's daughter, maybe. Sissy Spacek. Coal miners have all these people mining, right? Poor woman comes up. I'm pregnant. I can't work today. What do? Jazz out of here. Next person comes to you. Okay. Sissy Spacek decides, I'm going to organize a union under the Fair Labor Act. What do they try to do to the woman who's going to organize a union? They'll try to kill her, threaten her children, threaten her parents. Why do the owners of the mines not want a union? Because when they organize as a union, what will the union do? Now they can't deal with just one woman who comes and is pregnant. Now they have to deal with all the workers collectively. That's what's called a collective bargaining agreement. So what happens? Do they want this? Heck no, business owners don't want this. Why? Because what will the union do? What's the union's bargaining chip? What happens in the National Football League? What just happened in the National Basketball Association? When the union representing the players that play basketball, when the union representing the players that play football, when the union representing the workers in the coal mine, what do if they can't reach the agreement and the owners won't give them what they want? No, exact opposite. If I had asked you, what do the owners do?
They strike.
You would be right. What do the unions do? Huh? Louder.
A strike?
They strike. And what is striking? Huh? We're not working. None of us are working. Nobody's working. That means your business is shutting down. That means football league, Thursday night game, Sunday, guess what? You've seen the movie Replacement Players, right? All this happens because it's all right in front of your eyes. You just got to put it all together, right? It's very simple. You know the answers. This is just, it's all union. So you have to deal with the union. And in football, you've heard of Jim Yazoo Smith? Let's go back into the history of labor law. And it can be kind of boring, but it can be kind of interesting if you're a business person. You've got to learn to deal with the unions if you want to make business money, because every business now has got to deal with it. Who's Jim Yazoo Smith? He was a football player back in the 60s that
played for the Washington Redskins. And what did he decide to do? You know what he decided to do? He says, you know what? This damn business of drafting me, and I got to stay with one team. I'm not some cow or horse. There's something out here called, and who knows antitrust law? This is where sports law is very interesting. Who knows what antitrust concepts are? Who knows what the Sherman and the Clayton Act provide? Huh? Terribly sorry. Larry didn't feel. Who knows what the Sherman and the Clayton Act provide? Who knows what free enterprise is? Who knows what big businesses are entitled to? Who knows why AT&T was broken up? The concept is, under antitrust law in the United States, if I'm a business, we are, after all, a capitalist society. The Pope doesn't like that, but that's all cool. We're a capitalist society, and we're entitled to make money. And as a football player, Jim Yazoo Smith says, you cannot restrict my opportunity to compete in the marketplace, just like you can't restrict AT&T, just like you can't restrict anybody else. I have an opportunity. Just because I'm a football player doesn't mean I don't have the right to compete in the marketplace. And for you guys to draft me, keep me on one team for the eternity of my career, violates my rights under the antitrust laws of the United States. I should be able to go anywhere I want and play for any team I want. And you know what? Boy, did that creep. You know what the NFL, first thing they did? Settled with it. Why? Why do you think they settled?
Didn't want to lose the game.
Huh?
Didn't want to lose the game.
NFL did not want to lose the case. They didn't want to lose the case. They didn't want some judge to say, you know what? Your draft system is a violation of the antitrust laws of the United States. And therefore, throw it out the window, and any player can play for any team they want. What does the NFL